Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Persistence in Prayer podcast hosted by Catholic mindset coach, wife, mother, educator, and speaker Kylie Hein. Kylie is passionate about helping you deepen your relationship with God through the power of prayer. This podcast is a space for high achievers who want to do it all, but also want to prioritize their spiritual life and grow in faith. Join us as we explore the beauty of persistence in prayer and the transformative impact it can have on our lives. Get ready to discover practical tips, insights, and inspiration to help you develop a daily prayer practice and cultivate a deeper sense of trust in God's plan for your life. Let's journey together towards a more fulfilled and faithful life as we invite the Holy Spirit in. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, I am joined by Sophia Labano. She graduated with a degree in business management in 2023 and earned her MBA in 2024. She is the co-host of the Here and Now podcast and the founder of Sophia Labano Creative LLC, a website design and online business management company for Catholic and Christian entrepreneurs. Sophia also serves as a board member for her local Young Catholic Professionals chapter and runs the House of Love and Laughter shop with her mom, Heather Lebano. Sophia, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's so great to see you and be here to chat with you today.
Yes, I think I've seen your name pop up in so many groups for the last couple of years, and I got to work very briefly with you for a project, but I never had a chance to really just connect with you and hear your story. So I'm excited to kind of just learn more about you and have you share all of your wisdom with everyone.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that project was a blur that went by too quickly. But yes, I'm very excited to chat with you and to see how the conversation goes today.
Yeah. So as we get started, what do you want people listening to know about your story and about you?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think probably the best way to say this and the most humble way too is I have a story of perseverance and resilience. I First of all, that started when I was about 8 years old. I was diagnosed with progressive hearing loss in both ears, and I suffered through many challenges that came with that. There were lots of let's just put it this way: there's lack of accommodations for certain disabilities in the world, and I refused to let that bring me down. So even if it meant that I was suffering through all of that with schools and whatnot, I still knew that I had to keep going. And the very first experience I ever had was a supportive school within high school, not to my junior year. And I found this really amazing, I should say it found me through the intercessions of the saints, a really wonderful Catholic classical high school. It was the first time in years that I'd ever felt supported enough to be myself, be my young Catholic self, and also be someone who lived in the world with disabilities. So I had my bilateral cochlear implant surgeries in 2016 and 2018. And then that was when I had, found that school. And when it came time to apply to colleges, I was like, this is it. Like, this is going to be the first time that I find a school that will completely support me. And moved to college my freshman year, and I was gone a week later because I knew that I was not going to stand for the lack of support there too. So I took the semester off, started my business, and then in the spring I found Franciscan University, and I did it online for a couple of years, and then eventually transferred on campus in the fall of 2021, and that was when I had graduated with my bachelor's, and I was like, heck, I'll just stay another year and do a master's, which was hard to say the least. Running a business and also keeping up with the master's program was a little difficult. But I think that through all of that, God was like, you just have a story of perseverance and resilience. And I guess one other major detail I forgot. In this summer of 2020, my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer. And then he eventually passed away actually 10 days before I graduated college. So through my college experience, it was nothing short of a struggle and suffering, but there just have been so many graces that have come from it. Even though he is no longer here with us, he taught me so much. He was a very hard-headed person, if you will, and he gave me the gift of stubbornness, which presents itself often as persevering. So yes, with all of that, God has just taught me just to keep going, even if things are incredibly difficult. And I've learned that you just have to suffer well sometimes, even if it is very difficult.
Yeah. You have such a beautiful story. And
You
I mean, beautiful in a way that it's hard, and I'm sure it was, like, ugly and full of tears and struggle and
know.
pain, but just seeing that you do keep going and that perseverance and resilience that I kept hearing. And I love just the conviction that you had of saying, I was at school for a week and I just knew this is
Mhm.
not where I'm gonna stay. Like, I'm not going to stand for being treated or not supported in a way that I know that I need. Can you
Yes.
tell me a little bit more about that? What is that like to just have that conviction? How did you know?
I think it was 1000% the Holy Spirit just inspiring me because, I had gone through so much suffering for, gosh, like the first, what felt like years of my education from the time I was diagnosed in second grade. And so I finally found a supportive high school in junior year. So, however many years that is, it was a long time. And I knew that God didn't want me to have to endure more pain if I didn't need to. And obviously, I would not be here in the business that I'm in and in the life that I'm in if I didn't make that decision and I didn't stand up for my own convictions and my own dignity too. So I think that there's a lot of that wrapped up in it. There were so many nights of prayer and so many nights. There were only 7 nights that I was at that school, but there were long nights of prayer and long nights of tears that I just I didn't want to give up and make it look like I was giving up, but I also knew that I had a choice in front of me, and if I kept going and stayed there, it probably would not have been very good for me. And I kind of just asked all of my state board of directors, if you will, and had a long conversation with my parents, and eventually decided to make the leap and say I need to remove myself from the situation and put my worth first. But all of that was really just supported by prayer and so many um, nights of talking to the Lord and just asking what am I supposed to do in this moment and what's next to do, because after I make the decision I don't know where I'm going from here, and I really need your grace and mercy to help propel me forward. And again, he pushed me right exactly where I needed to be, and I started my business. I kept going with my podcast, which it's been 5 years this year, which is crazy. But I've kept up with that, and now my mom and I co-host it together. So all that being said, so many nights of prayer and so many nights of grace, and it wasn't without suffering, but I wouldn't be here without it.
I'm just thinking of your college experience and my college experience. Every time I talk to young women such as yourself who just are outwardly living their faith so beautifully and it started so young, it just inspires me. And I look back, I'm like, man, I missed out on some really good years that I'm hoping the Lord's going to make up for, which he totally will in
Yeah.
moments. He can do it in moments. But I just think that's inspiring. And a couple of things I want to highlight that you said, just for everyone listening. Sophia said she had a choice to put her worth first. And I think that that's something that everyone listening needs to remember. You always have a choice to put your self worth first. So even in a monumental moment, if anyone listening can remember back to choosing a college, it is already so incredibly stressful. I can't imagine what it's like to get there and be like, hey, guess what, mom and dad, actually, this isn't going to work out. I need to find
Yes.
somewhere different. And there's the whole financial aspect and all of those things, but also just your diligence to prayer and asking the Lord, what do you want for me right now? Not
Mhm.
how are you going to fix this? I need you to do it this way. But what do you want? And he led you to where you are.
Exactly. Yes. And I often love going back into my photo album. I love, snapping quick pictures and having that to reference. And just a few weeks ago, I had found a photo that I had found on Instagram when I was really praying about this. And in the photo, it said, and on the seventh day, she rested. And obviously, I know that it was taken about God resting in creation. But when I had found that, I had taken that the week that I was discerning whether or not to leave. And that just really caught my attention because I had gone through so much suffering in my years of going through hearing loss during grade school and then high school. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the time that I need to take a step back and rest. Um, the college was only 40 minutes or so from my house, so I wasn't too far away. But I was like, I think that this is the time that God is calling me to just stop and be silent. I'm a very driven person, if you will. My number one strength on Clifton Strength is achiever. So sometimes that can lead to a fault, if you will. And I realized that I needed to take the time to rest and heal. And that was probably one of the most difficult and pivotal months of my life, where I was going through some mental health struggles, trying to figure out what it is that I was supposed to do with my life. No, I'm out of college. I'm not doing anything. I have nothing in the foreseeable future. And then that's when God started planting the seeds. Like, maybe you should check out Franciscan. And couldn't have been better timing. I was like, I'll just do online, get acclimated. I did like 4 classes or something in the spring of 2020. And what do you know, COVID hit and everybody was online. So God was already preparing me for that. And I stayed online for those 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, until I made the decision to move to campus. But it really came back to like, God was reminding me that it is okay to take time to rest, even if you feel like all the shoulds. Like, we need to keep doing this. I should be doing this. I should be in freshman year of college right now. And you feel like you need to be further in life than you are. He really kind of smacked me upside the head. Was like, it's okay to just chill out and realize exactly your worth and your dignity right now, even if that means that you need to just stay quiet and small for it.
Yeah. I'm also achiever is my number one on Clifton Strengths. And I'm sure most of the women listening to this podcast, it is probably in their top 10. Even if they
Yes.
haven't taken that test, I'm just going to guess that it probably is. And you said it's okay to rest. And I think that's something that I have to remind myself of frequently. Again, reminder for everyone listening. Sometimes we just have to box up the shoulds because our should list is so stinking long. We want to help everyone. And even when it's really good things, we feel like we should just take on all the good things. Like, who's going to do it? It's the pride component of who's going to do it if not me. So I better just do
Yes.
it. But maybe that's not what God wants you to do right now.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I love learning about the strengths for that reason. Like, you have what they call like the shadow side, right? So what is the maybe downfall per se of having that strength, and having it be number one can definitely be a downfall. That you pushed yourself so hard and then you're like, wow, okay, I feel like I didn't get anything done in a day. Meanwhile, you crossed off your entire checklist, right? Or maybe you have one thing left on there. And it's not it's not meant to be something that's like a weakness to know the shadow side of that, but just to know yourself and know your limits too. And I think God makes that very evident in so many ways for me too.
Yeah, I think the Strengths Finder, I've shared this before on the podcast, but the thing that stuck out so much to me when I read the descriptions was starting every day at ground zero. It doesn't matter if you did a million things yesterday. When you wake up that next morning, it's like, what do I have to get done today? What do I have
Yeah.
to earn today? What do I have to achieve today? What, praise am I going to get today? And it's just so ingrained in us. But we have to remember we are not our labels. We are not even our natural inclinations, and we are not our emotions. We are, daughters of God, and our identity is in Him. And so we might not like to, but we can set those things aside and we can be still. Just like you said, be still and be small. I love that.
Yes. Yes. It's hard. It is definitely hard. You're like, I just need a rest day when I'm sick. And it's very hard to even take a sick day. And I just did that yesterday. I'll be honest. I'm like, I'm just going to sit on the couch and heal. And thank God I did. So I can feel much better today. Right. So many things like that. But yeah, God just calls us to sometimes dig deep and push past those things that might feel like limitations. They're actually supposed to be our motivators and our sense of greatest joy. But sometimes we, to a fault, of course, being human, take it a little bit too far.
Yeah. I want to go back to coping when you didn't have support. So there's obviously the prayer side, which we all need. That's number one of leaning on the Lord. But do you have any other strategies that were helpful for you when you didn't have the support that you needed that maybe others could utilize as well?
Yeah. Honestly, my parents were a very, very great support system for me. And with that, just can be talking to people and learning to advocate for yourself. And that can be for anything. It doesn't have to be, for hearing loss or disability. But it was just something that kind of was ingrained in me from the beginning to learn to advocate for myself. And that was something that my parents just continually put in me, that I needed to stand up for myself. But the coping, I think, came with finding those people that I knew I could rely on. And when I felt like I didn't have a voice, or I felt like I was too weak and too tired to speak up for myself, um, I had those people in my corner that I knew would for me. And through my hearing loss journey, I was very, very great friends with my doctors and my support staff at my hospital. And I knew that if there was a time when my teachers were giving me a particularly hard time about, honoring my accommodations, I knew that they could step in for me, and they would be able to chat with them and gently encourage them to support me. Um, but with that achiever, it's something that I saw through my entire childhood. I was very self-sufficient, so there was a part of me that I was like, "Fine, I don't wanna be a burden to anybody else." And I kinda just learned to sit in that, like, I will take care of myself, and that's okay. But again, to a fault, right? That is, sometimes it is okay to ask, not sometimes, it's okay to ask anytime you need help from other people. But having those trusted people I knew that I could go to was very helpful. And thankfully I was in a school where my younger siblings were also attending, so they were always there if I needed to have a support system, which is kind of feels backwards, right? I'm the oldest. I feel like I should have this authority over, just being the oldest. But even then, when I felt like I couldn't speak up, my siblings and my parents, they were able to step in for me.
You just spoke to my number one belief lie. Like the lie
Yeah.
that I believed about me for so long, yeah, is I'm a burden. Like it goes back to I don't want to be a burden. If I have to ask for help, I need to be self-sufficient. I need to take care of these things because I don't want people to feel like they have to take care of me or they have to go out of their way to help me. I just want to be able to take care of it because, we're taught that we should be responsible and we should take care of things,
Mhm.
but then it's like that mind game that the evil one plays with us is twisting it in your head to say you have to do everything by yourself.
Yep, exactly. And one of the hardest things, which should have been the easiest thing to do, was when I would, watch a video in class, I would just gently remind the teacher to put on the closed captions. And I'll never forget, I was probably in middle school at that point. Kids are just very mean in middle school. That I had heard a voice like, "Why do we have to put closed captions on again? They're in the way of whatever on the screen." And I remember just feeling so small, and I just, kind of shrunk in my seat, and I was like, am I really that much of a burden to everyone that, like, the words on the screen? And you know what? I learned that maybe there was someone else in that room who needed closed captions, but they were never going to admit that to their friends, right? That they maybe not for hearing, but just needed to help, keep along with it, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and at that point, the teacher was like, "Yeah, you're kind of right," and they didn't keep them on for me, and they honored everyone else. So I just kind of stopped asking, and I just stopped reminding people that I needed help. Um, and because I felt like such a burden because everyone else made me feel like that. And it wasn't until high school when I finally found a school that was incredibly supportive because it was a small classroom. There were only 3 kids in my graduating class when I started, and there were 4 when I finished, that I realized, like, it was more than okay to ask for help, and they were encouraging of me, and they wanted that for me because they wanted to see me succeed. And my success could be, looking different in everyone's eyes, but when I finally saw that other people saw my worth, and that was when I started to realize it for myself.
Oh, I love that. When other people saw your worth, you saw it in yourself. By the way, I love closed captions. My husband hates it, but I will put them on all the time because I'm such a visual person. I feel like I get
Yeah.
so much more out of it when I can read. So I love closed captions. I will put them on anytime.
Yeah.
But you talking just reminds me, my daughter is about to turn 9, and she's just very much at that age where all the girls are just so acutely aware of other people's opinions around them. When you're really young, you fall, It's no big deal. People see you fall on your face. You just get back up. You keep going. You don't think anything about it. And now, especially as females, I feel like we just get to this point and we're so aware of anybody else's eye roll, their glances, their whispers, and we automatically assume that it's about us. Sometimes it is, but more often it's not. We make it about us. And then we're just like, we let it eat us up because we feel, again, like we're a burden or everyone, they don't like me. I did something wrong. And then we just close in and stop being our authentic selves. And that carries
Yes.
on into our adulthood if we don't acknowledge that that's happening and bring it into the light.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was just recapping a story to someone yesterday that I loved picking these bright color hearing aid molds. Like to now I'm looking back at like what was I thinking? Because they were
Don't we all?
ugly color combinations, like pink and brown one time, like that was a thing when I was growing up. But I loved picking that out. And I loved being unapologetic and choosing those colors. And because I was finding the joy in the situation, right? It was hard. It was a struggle to feel like every time I was going to an appointment, my numbers were dropping and I was losing more and more hearing day by day. But when I started getting, those comments and those eye rolls, if you will, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be picking such bright colors. And I started to again retreat into myself, like maybe it's for the best that I am not so public about it, and maybe I'll just kind of blend into the background. But I wasn't born to blend in. I was born to stand out. And I was born to be the spokesperson for hearing loss. And I was born to be on a podcast. And I was born to be a business owner, all of which requires you showing up as an authentic self, and all of which requires you to have a voice and learn to advocate for yourself and be resilient in all of these situations. But that was not something that was I learned instantly. It was a very long and hard and slow process to finally realize the truth of.
Yeah. And as a Catholic business leader, there is no hiding what you believe. People know that you are Catholic. And in today's
Mhm.
society, that can be intimidating. And it's not easy to
Yes.
be a Christian in today's world right now, especially with the political atmosphere that we have right now in a lot of places and online. What has helped you to really stay convicted of who you are and stay rooted in your faith? Do you get opposition online?
I did in the beginning, I think, but now because I feel like I own it and God has allowed me to own it, that it's been so much easier. When I first started my business, I was like, I'll take anybody and everybody, and I'll work with whoever, just to kind of get myself established. But that was very quickly proven to be a not a great move. I started working with some people that did not share the same values as me, and it was very, very difficult to have conversation. And obviously, being a Catholic business owner on either side, be either the receiving side or the giving side of service providing, it's difficult. Is there's a lot of I guess, platitudes maybe that you'll receive or things that are just stigmas or stereotypes of being a Catholic business owner. But when I started realizing that this is exactly the industry that God was calling me to be in, it's not without its challenges for sure. But I found my people. I found my community, and people will rally around you and support you as a business owner. I'm very much about learning about the vocation of a business leader because I think that is often a very missed thing in the Catholic world. Um, that God calls you to make a profit and start a business and contribute to the greater society and the common good. And when I finally learned that in college, that was when I was like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
So good. Another online question for you.
Hmm.
So this came up recently, and I know this has come up in coaching with clients before. Social media, the internet, the news. Again, this time of year can make people feel all kinds of things. Overwhelmed, they can feel grief, they can feel anger. I mean, the things people do not think about what they put out on social
Hmm.
media and how it's
Yeah.
going to affect the people that are reading it. But then we also have the news and we have wars going on and strikes going on and all of these really heavy things. And, easily we can just turn it off But some people have to be online. How do you manage that? Or do you have any advice for someone who might be feeling overwhelmed or worried or anxious from everything that they're seeing or reading? How do you filter through that and not let it become like this heavy weight that you're carrying around?
That's a great question. I feel like I can be better at that myself. But I feel like you have to okay, well, from a technical standpoint, we'll put it that way. If you're seeing things that you don't want to see, the algorithm is very much trainable, right? So you curate the content that you want to see. So I feel like in the last, few weeks, I've seen fewer and fewer posts, maybe because I'm looking at things that are bringing me joy. I'm following the accounts that I want to see content from. Now, sometimes there's the inevitable things that slip through, but if I'm finding accounts that maybe are speaking the truths that I want to hear, I'm going to follow them. I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at their content more and more. And if it's coming to a point where like I can't do it anymore, I'm just going to shut it off and I'm just going to put it away. But I've heard people I'm not really great about, the social media aspect of things. I've spent so much time on my client accounts and posting for them that I am either not on it for myself, or if I am, there's days where I doom scroll, we'll be honest, and kind of get into the scrolling hole, if you will. But with that, I'm choosing the content that I want to see and I'm engaging with those accounts so I see it more. But when I feel like I just can't take it anymore, then I need to put it away and just, kind of allow God to have his hand in it and just take it over. I've also heard really great things about maybe, like, putting a Saint Benedict medal, like, near your phone or something when you are on it, because it kind of prevents the negative news, if you will, and things from showing up, or I've heard people say that it helps them, like, stop scrolling too much, when they don't want to.
Yeah, I do have a Saint Benedict sticker on the back of my phone. I had read that somewhere too, and
Yeah,
I had some, and I was like, "I'm putting one on my phone." My daughter has one
yeah.
on her water bottle. So I do love that. And I'm hearing you say just follow the things that you love, the things that fill you up. Just like you talked about having a community around you, people who can help be your voice, who are going to help uplift your voice and see your worth and share your moral values. Those are the people we want to surround ourselves with online as well. And train that algorithm that this is what I want to
Yeah.
see. When other things fall through, I just like to remember there's that nice little snooze button. You can snooze that person for 30
Yep.
days.
Yes. Yes,
And
that has been my best friend.
yes, and I try, to let them come through for a while because I want to gain perspective on where that person is coming from. And I want to try to understand and pray for them. But if it does become too much, I just snooze that person for a while,
Yeah.
or I get off of that social media platform for the time being. And
Yes.
for me, I'll just share for the news, I rarely watch the news. My husband has to have it on all of the time. And so I get most of my information from him. If there's something I need to look up, I do. But my algorithm is not trained to send me all of the news things because
Yeah.
I am intentional about not looking it up on my phone.
Mhm.
And that has really helped me to just censor. And then if it
Yes.
becomes too much for my husband, then we'll have a conversation. But he likes to be informed from a multitude of different platforms to form his own opinion. And I am so grateful that he loves that because I don't.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I love watching the news and just kind of seeing what's going on and keeping up with it. But there is sometimes a point where it just feels so heavy and just driven by grief, right? And you feel like you're just going to get sucked into the emotion of it. But yeah, the algorithm is very trainable. And if it drives you crazy to be on Instagram and Facebook, Pinterest is always there, and Pinterest is happy and joyful and great at giving you all the inspiration of things that you want to do. So that's always there. It's an option. If you want to feel like you need to scroll, just go to Pinterest because you can never go wrong with looking on Pinterest.
I always forget about Pinterest. I used to be on there all the time and I feel like since I've had kids, it's less and less.
Yes.
You brought up grief and you shared with us earlier about your dad, and I'm so sorry about your loss.
Thank you.
My dad was diagnosed around that same time with colon cancer.
Mm.
So, share that with you. But what is grief like for you?
Mm. That's a great question. And that's the second time I've gotten that question in the last year. And I think it's always really beautiful when people ask me that because it looks different for everyone. And in every situation, it's going to look different for me, for my mom, for my other siblings, for my friends who have also lost parents very young. Um, it's a roller coaster. It is a tidal wave. It is a hurricane. It's a tornado. It is all of that. But it also is in a very weird way, can be a very beautiful experience. It's a very big journey of healing. Um, Obviously, I would never wish this on anyone else to have to go through this experience, especially at such a young age. Just sometimes I stop and think like, wow, I was not even 23 years old when my dad passed away, and now I'm about to turn 24. And it's just so crazy. Like, time, people often do say time heals, and I do believe that, but also I think that you have to go through experiencing the milestones and the first, and it's going to be forever hard without them. The first year is hard. 5 years is going to be hard. 10 years is going to be hard. But experiencing all of those things without them and knowing that they're not going to be there, they're going to be here from heaven watching, of course, but to not have them physically here, it's just like an ache that you never feel like you're going to be able to fill except through the grace of God. But there have been a lot of things that we've come to know in the last, year, almost a year and a half since he's been gone, that God just continually shows up for us. But again, it doesn't mean that it's not difficult, and there's so much deep suffering, and sometimes it just hits you and you feel like you're just stuck. And you're like, I don't really know how to go forward from this. But through so much prayer and so much grace, God is able to just keep, pushing us forward gently. And sometimes the best you can do is the best you can do. If it's 100% one day, or if it's 70%, 70% is your 100% for the day. And that's about all you can do. Um, my mom wrote a really great post yesterday, so the day before we recorded this, about sometimes the best you can do is all you can do. And if you're showing up and feeling like you're giving your best, then you did it, and you did it for the day. Um, but there might be some days where you feel like that's not your best, and that's okay, because that's really all that we can ask for.
And as the achiever, you're probably never going to feel like it's your best. You're always going to feel like you
Yeah.
could give more.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. I mean, yesterday was very difficult because I woke up and I was just feeling not so hot, and I was like, all I feel like doing is sitting on the couch, and I had the news on. That was running on in the background. And I don't think I even touched my computer until maybe 5 p.m. And I was like, you know what? I can let it go, and it's okay. And that's all that I did. And I got maybe two things crossed off my list. But I was kind of reminding myself, like, I don't know the last time I took a sick day. Even if I was actually sick, I was continually working. And I know that probably makes me sound like a workaholic, but I promise it is just because of my strength. It's because I actually sometimes do enjoy just working and getting things done. But yes, the best that I can do is sometimes the best that I can do, and it might not be enough, but sometimes I just have to ask God for the grace to accept that, and for the gratitude to say, okay, I did what I could do, and that's the best I can give.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had
Thank
something else I
you.
was going to say, and it totally just flew out of my brain while you were talking. But I can relate to not taking sick days. I was a teacher
Yes.
for a long time, and it was like, there are no taking sick days. It's so much work to have to take a sick day. So you just show up and do it anyway. Oh, I remember now. Okay. So I was going to say something I have really been working on that has been so helpful is celebrating a long to do list, because a long to do list
Mhm.
means that I rested. I made
Yes.
time for a break, and I am retraining my brain to see that as a positive thing, because it's more difficult for me to rest than it is to work.
Mhm.
And so that has just been super helpful for me.
Yes, that's a great point. I think Mondays are usually when I have a very long to-do list, and for the first little bit that I was working and trying to grow my business, I would work straight through the weekends, and that was a very difficult thing for me. I worked so hard during college to create this business so that I could come out of my degree and have a full-time job to look to and have that sustain me, which I am so grateful for. But sometimes it got to the point where I was lacking the boundaries for myself to be like, it's okay to take a weekend, and it's okay to not work and, have your computer be dusty on a Monday morning because you didn't touch it all weekend. And I've gotten so much better. And I'm so grateful for my mom and my siblings and my business coach and all my people that are supporting me to say, like, it's okay to just, not have to work through the weekends, and establishing those boundaries for myself to know, like, I don't need to respond to messages after a certain time, or my clients are now very familiar with my time of day that I work. And I didn't want to work necessarily at 9 to 5, but that is also the way the world works, right? There's a certain time for working during the day, there's a certain time for leisure and rest. And kind of getting myself on that schedule has been really, really helpful. So I don't feel as burnt out and feel like I have accomplished what I need to during a work day.
What are some of the fruits that you've seen from taking a Saturday off or just time off?
That's a great question. I've gotten to experience so much more that I've wanted to do, for the last few weekends. So to back up a little bit, two of my siblings are currently in college. Both are like the middle. So it's me, my brother, and my sister, and my younger sister. My brother and my middle sister are in their freshman and senior years at Franciscan. So right now it is currently my mom, myself, and my youngest sister at home. So it's kind of quiet here. We're still very loud and lively house. For the past few weekends, we've gone vintage shopping on Saturdays. We've gotten to go to coffee shops and try new coffee shops, and just have those like weekend things that you want to do. As a young kid in your 20s, right? And have those experiences. But same can go for people who are, moms who have kids. If you take the weekend to really tune in and be with your family, or spend time with your friends and do things that you can shut off from work and actually focus on some of the things that are bringing you joy, that has been really helpful, and that has been a great fruit for me, with this part of my boundary setting journey, if you will.
Yeah. So, anyone listening who is still working through the weekend, there are many benefits to taking a break.
Yes.
It took me far too many years to learn that because I always thought, and this came up too if I would go away for a silent retreat or something like that, is it's so great while I'm on it, but when I come back, I'm so overwhelmed because everything just piled up. But we still need those breaks, and we can learn how to be more creative in prepping ahead of time so that when we come back, it's not so chaotic. There are ways to work around that. There are ways to have the rest and come back to a place where you can be rejuvenated and not
Mhm.
overwhelmed.
Exactly, and sometimes, if I find I maybe have a little bit extra time on a Friday, or, even if I decide to open my computer and prepare myself for the week ahead during the weekend, I might schedule my emails to send out on Monday morning so I don't feel like I have such a long and full inbox to come back to after the weekend, but that is kind of more of a rare occasion now, if you will. But I found making time for the other things that I want to do and things that I would like to get done. Maybe it's reading, or, cleaning, or enjoying some other experiences. That is the time to be able to do that during the weekend.
Yeah, and it can be a slow transition. When I was teaching, I almost always had to grade papers on Sundays, or at least in my mind I had to because I coached volleyball, so that took up all my Saturday, or we had family things on Saturday, and I didn't like that I worked on Sunday, but it was the only day I felt like I could get all the things graded because they were due in the grade book by 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And it was it was hard to set boundaries. So eventually it was like, okay, I'm only gonna work on them after my kids go to bed. But then I was staying up till 2 a.m. and starting my week overly tired. And then I just
Yeah.
said, I'm not gonna do it at all on Sundays. So I would get up really early Monday morning. But then at least it barriered. I only had so many hours to work. So I couldn't extend it to an 8-hour day. It was maybe an hour and a half before I went into work on Monday. And then just little by little, I got more efficient throughout my week so that I didn't have quite so much to take home, or I learned to just spread out my tests, or, just get creative in how I was managing my workload.
That was what I was gonna say, is you realize when you limit your time or put those boundaries down, how much more time you actually do have, and how much more efficient you can be and creative you can be. Maybe it might be, and obviously in teaching, this couldn't be the case, but for me, outsourcing, I'm so grateful that I could hire an assistant to work with me, and she's there to help me manage the load that I can't take on. Then maybe it's like more of the bigger projects that I want to work on, and she can manage my inbox. But we know with house projects and things like organizing your time and getting creative, maybe getting the kids involved in some things, or obviously that's probably going to be a little bit messy. You're painting or whatever. but realizing how much more time you have with less time, it was actually such an interesting perspective. And also letting go of the things that were, I had a branch of my business in virtual assisting that I loved doing early on. But in the last couple of months, I realized that that was kind of weighing me down. And I was so grateful that it kind of helped me get my start. But I finally felt God like this is the time to slow down and maybe close that chapter. So I let go of some of the projects that I was working on for virtual assisting, and I realized how much of my time was being used with that. And I felt that it was, even though it was hard closing that chapter, God opened more doors in so many other ways. And I was able to find more time to work on the things that I actually found joy in doing.
That's awesome. Before we get to our prayer tip or scripture verse, which is how I close every episode with a guest, I would love it if you would share where everyone can find you.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, so many places. The main one is my website, sophialabano.com. That's Sophia with a PH. And that's probably where you can find all of my projects, how to get in contact with me. I'm also pretty active, not necessarily posting, but I love just being on Instagram and hanging out there. That's just Sophia Labano. If you also want to see my creative work and all of the website stuff I'm doing, Sophia Labano Creative on Instagram as well is where I post my latest projects and some helpful tips if you're interested in the marketing and website design of things.
And your podcast is called Here and Now.
Yes, yes, HEAR, and no, it's a play on hearing loss, if you will, by now. We're just restarting our new season, and we've got some really awesome guests that we've recorded with, and I'm so excited to be back behind the mic for another season.
Awesome. So you provided me with two scripture verses. The first one is Esther 4:14. Perhaps this is the moment for which you have been created. And then Jeremiah 29:11, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for woe, to give you a future and a hope. Do you want to comment on either of those?
Yes, so those two verses were very significant to me. Jeremiah 29:11 is obviously a very popular one for people, but that was a sign that I had gotten for my dorm room when I first moved in for freshman year. And I kept it behind my bed, and when I was taking pictures for my first day of school for like selfies or whatever, that was in the background. And, when I was discerning what I was doing with this, I just kept coming back to that verse. And that's kind of how it tied into Esther 4:14 as well. Perhaps this is the moment for which you have been created. I also have that above my bed in my room here. And both of those verses have carried me through so many things throughout my life. And it just speaks so much to the plans that God has for you. That even if this moment is really, really difficult and there's a lot of suffering involved, you are where you're meant to be. And God has a plan for you, and He's going to keep carrying it forward. And when you show resilience and when you have perseverance, He's going to keep pushing you and propelling you forward. And this is an analogy that I bring up when I do a lot of podcast interviews. Is I saw this video, and it was meant to be like a physics video on Instagram, but I turned it into something faithful. It was two marbles on a track, and one was on a straight track and the other one was on a bumpy track. And they set them off at the same time. And you would have thought right away that the one that was on the straight track would have come back faster. But it was actually the one that was on the bumpy track that was able to hit the end and come back quicker than the one on the straight track. And I was just like, every single time something happens in our mountains and our valleys, this is what's ultimately getting us to the goal of heaven, right? It's going to keep pushing us forward. So I'm not discounting hard and suffering and all of the experiences that we might have that feel like they're just stopping us and preventing us. But sometimes those roadblocks or those things that feel like they're just too hard to overcome are the things that are leading to our sanctification overall. So those verses are really just what put that into perspective for me. Again, not discounting that things weren't hard and there wasn't a lot of suffering involved, but realizing ultimately that this was all part of God's plan to sainthood. Uh, it's what kind of keeps me going.
Yeah. And I think Jeremiah 29:11 was the prophet Jeremiah speaking for the Lord, but it was in a time of suffering. So I actually would look this up ahead of time because I've prayed with Jeremiah 29:11, but it's been quite a while, and it is a common verse. And if you look a little more into the context of it, this is a prophetic letter that Jeremiah sent from Israel to the Jewish exiles in Babylon. So these were slaves who had lost everything. They were probably very much in despair. They were feeling abandoned. They were feeling forgotten by the Lord. And God is telling them he's going to gather them and he's going to bring them back to the Holy Land. And the future for them was not necessarily something new, but it was restoring something that had been lost. And it was restoring their relationship with him. And Father Mike Schmitz talks about how that context is important, but it's not to take away from God still having a plan for our welfare because we are still his children. And the caveat to that we sometimes forget is like, we have to be faithful. And that is what I've heard from you again and again throughout this podcast is you've been in the suffering, you've been in the hurt, but you've been faithful. You've gone to prayer and you've surrounded yourself with people who love the Lord and have common values and see your worth for who you are. And that is what keeps you going, that makes you so perseverant and resilient and on your way to the saint that you're going to be someday.
Thank you. Yes, and amen. It's so true. And I think there's actually a second part to Jeremiah 29. People are always referencing 29:11, but I think in 29:12, there was also something that was very poignant. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. So people often just think of the 11 part, but if you keep going 12 and 13, that's the promise that he will be there, and he will be there to continue to listen to you and just know your heart and know where you are, because he is faithful and he is unconditional, which I think is something that we all need right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sophia. It's been such a joy to have you. And
Yes.
I will be praying for you and all the work that you are doing. You're doing awesome things in the world. So thank you again for your yes to God and for everything that you're doing for people all over.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to just come on and share my heart. I love having conversations with people. I am very much an extrovert type of person. So this is always something that brings me joy. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Beautiful souls, thank you again for journeying with me. If you have been blessed by this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a review. Be sure to screenshot it, share it on your social media stories, and don't forget to tag me on Instagram or Facebook at Kylie M. Hein. Stay persistent in prayer, protect your peace, and as always, share the light of Christ with everyone around you.